They say the richest man in New York hasn't smiled in 10 years. But when I walked into his penthouse, I swear the air itself bowed to him. What if the man the city worships is the one cursed never to feel love? What if his heart beats only when someone else dreams his name? And what if that someone is me? That night, the city slept beneath lightning's lullaby, while I lay awake, wondering why his silence felt louder than any sound I'd ever heard. Every breath I took inside that glass palace felt borrowed, as if the air belonged to him. Adrian didn't speak during breakfast. He didn't have to. The air around him carried unspoken rules that feelings were forbidden, and kindness was currency too expensive to spend. He asked me to read for him that night. Not stories, but silence. He said he wanted to hear what peace sounded like through someone else's voice. I didn't know silence could ache. As midnight neared, the lights dimmed, and I swore I heard something impossible. A heartbeat that wasn't mine. When I looked up, Adrian was staring at me like he'd just seen his first ghost. Or his first hope. The first night I dreamt of him, I woke with tears I couldn't explain, and his name still trembling on my lips. What kind of dream remembers your heartbeat when you wake? What if the man you barely know already lives inside your dreams? He found me in the morning, staring out the window like I was waiting for something I couldn't name. And for the first time, his voice didn't sound cold. It sounded curious, almost fragile. He asked me about my dreams that day. I lied and said I didn't remember. But the truth, I saw him trapped in a glass labyrinth, his heart chained to a mirror that bled light. I think he's the one who's been dreaming me too. That evening, I read to him again. But halfway through, the words began to change. The sentences twisted into prophecies I'd never written, ones that spoke his name like a promise. Later that night, I woke to find the penthouse trembling, the windows fogged over with a single word drawn in condensation. Remember. When I turned, he was standing there, barefoot, his eyes wide like a man who'd just escaped a dream he didn't understand. It happened on the third night, when the storm refused to sleep and the city drowned in silver rain. I cried in my sleep, and he heard me whisper his name like a prayer I never meant to speak. He said nothing the next morning, but his eyes followed me like he was trying to remember how to breathe. I could feel his silence touch me, the way heat touches before a flame. Lucien visited that day. His smile was polite, but his words felt like knives wrapped in silk. He warned me to stay away from Adrian's dreams, as if he already knew they weren't mine anymore. That night, the dreams returned. Louder, clearer. I saw a boy trapped inside a mirror, crying as the reflection turned to stone. When I reached for him, it was Adrian's voice that whispered, "Don't wake me!" I woke to find him beside my bed. Not as the billionaire everyone feared, but as a man lost in his own heart. He said he felt something break inside him when he heard me cry. I told him maybe it wasn't breaking. Maybe it was finally beginning. The morning after he heard me cry, the city looked different, brighter, as if the sun had found courage again. But in Adrian's eyes, I saw something far more dangerous than light. I saw feeling. He began asking questions, not about business, but about me. My favorite scent, the sound that calmed me. He didn't realize every answer was an invitation, every glance a key unlocking what had sworn to bury. That evening, the penthouse lights flickered. The way a heart flutters before it confesses something it shouldn't. I realized the house was breathing with us, mirroring the rhythm of whatever this was becoming. Lucien appeared again, this time furious. He said Adrian's. Emotions were the curse awakening, not breaking. But when Adrian looked at me, his pain looked too human to be anything but real. Later that night, I found him in the music room, playing a single note on the grand piano, over and over. He said he didn't know why, only that it made him feel alive. And when he smiled, I realized what every curse fears most: love that remembers itself. It began before sunrise, that hour when night forgets itself but morning hasn't yet remembered to breathe. I heard my name echo through the walls, carried by a voice I almost didn't recognize. When I found him, Adrian wasn't the untouchable man the world feared. He was human, trembling, his body bent under the invisible weight of something ancient and cruel. The curse wasn't just inside him anymore. It was spilling into the room, into the air, into me. Or would should see or. He looked up when I whispered his name, his eyes hollow, his breath shallow. And for the first time, I saw him not as a man bound by darkness, but as someone terrified of what it might cost to be free. He told me the truth as if confessing to God, his voice cracking like glass with every word. The curse had been born in blood, sealed under a storm by the first veil to trade love for power. Every son after that carried the silence. Every daughter forgot how to feel. He said he'd learn to mimic living, to smile for cameras, to laugh at nothing, to shake hands that meant nothing. Until one night, my voice slipped into his sleep and he felt. He said it was agony. He said it was life. He said he didn't know the difference anymore. And I just sat there, unable to breathe, because I realized the curse wasn't about feeling nothing. It was about being punished for feeling too much. He reached for me then, his hand shaking, hesitant, afraid that touching me might destroy us both. But I couldn't let him sit in that kind of loneliness. I took his hand, and it was like holding lightning, pain laced with warmth, fear dressed as truth. My heartbeat tangled with his, wild and defiant, as though our bodies remembered something our minds never learned. For one eternal breath, the room stopped breathing. The fire stilled. The air hummed. I saw the light of the curse move from him into me, not to harm, but to share. And in that impossible moment, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. Maybe the curse wasn't meant to break. Maybe it was meant to be carried by two. Lucian came like a storm breaking through the calm. His voice struck the walls before his footsteps reached the room. He looked at me as though I were the weapon, not the cure. He said if the curse bound itself to me, it would end the veil line forever. He said I didn't understand what I'd done. That emotion was the very fuel the curse used to kill. But when I looked back at Adrian, pale and trembling but alive, I knew there was no turning back. Love wasn't the danger. It was the rebellion. The curse wanted silence, and we had finally found sound. We fled to the balcony when the power surged, glass trembling, lights bursting one by one until only the city remained below, endless and alive. The wind howled like it recognized us. He said my name through the storm, his voice breaking, begging, breathing. I told him he didn't need to be saved, only seen. And in that moment, as the storm light wrapped around us, I knew that love wasn't a spell or a miracle or even a promise. It was surrender. When our lips met, the world fell silent. The curse shattered not like glass but like dawn, spreading warmth where there had only been shadow. I felt his heartbeat steady beneath my hand, and for the first time, the silence inside him was gone. Love was never meant to be gentle, not for us. It came roaring, wild and raw, like a storm that had waited centuries to speak. One moment, he was breathing beside me. The next, his body arched, light tearing through him, and the air in the penthouse cracked with soundless thunder. The curse wasn't breaking, it was fighting back, furious that it had been touched by something as fragile as love. I screamed his name, but it was drowned by 1,000 invisible voices, the kind that don't come from mouths but from memories. And somewhere deep inside all that chaos I heard his whispering my name like a vow he wasn't ready to keep. Then came the silence, thick, unnatural. The entire building seemed to hold its breath. The lights shattered, plunging the world into black. I called for him, but the only answer was a sound I shouldn't have been able to hear. His heartbeat echoing through the dark, steady and desperate, like the world itself was trying to find its rhythm again through him. I followed that sound through the corridor, candle trembling in my hand. Shadows moved like they were alive. For every step I took, the pulse grew louder until I found him. Half in this world, half in another, his body glowing like a dying star. He looked at me through the dark and said, "If I lose this, I lose you." And I realized the curse wasn't just his anymore. It was ours. Lucien arrived like a shadow that knew its way home. He didn't knock. He never had to. The doors burst open, wind swirling around his silhouette as if the night itself followed him. He shouted that it had gone too far. That love had undone what generations of blood had built. His words were full of fear, but underneath them was envy. He had never been brave enough to love. Adrian tried to stand, trembling, defiant, silver light sparking from his skin. "If love is what kills me," he said, "then I die finally knowing I'm alive." The curse roared through the glass walls, shaking every inch of the penthouse. Lucien's hand lifted, black smoke coiling from his palm like poison. I ran to Adrian, and for a heartbeat, the darkness and the light collided. When the curse struck, time broke, mirrors shattered. Reflections turned into fragments of memory, pieces of the boy Adrian once was, the man he'd become, and the one he was trying to be for me. Each shard showed a different version of him, laughing, crying, lost, alive. I saw his pain, his loneliness, his longing, all the lives he had lived without ever being allowed to feel them. And I understood. The curse wasn't just a punishment. It was a prison of memory. The only way to break it wasn't through magic. It was through remembering. Through love that refuses to forget. I stepped forward, my hand bleeding from the shattered glass, and pressed my palm to his heart. "You're not alone anymore," I whispered. "You never were." Outside, the storm broke, thunder, and light crashing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He fell into my arms, body limp, eyes closed, skin glowing with fading light. I held him, begging, pleading, promising. My tears fell onto his chest, and each one flared like a spark, tiny constellations blooming over his heart. Then, the world went quiet. The wind stopped, the lights dimmed, and I thought the curse had won. But then his fingers twitched, his eyes opened, and for the first time, I saw no silver, no chains, no pain, just the man he'd been fighting to become. He whispered my name, and I realized, love doesn't always save you. Sometimes it lets you save yourself. The air was still, heavy, with the scent of rain and metal. For a heartbeat, I thought the world had ended with him. Then something inside the silence stirred. A breath, shallow but certain. His body trembled against mine. Not from pain this time, but from life returning. Timid as a candle in the wind, I whispered his name. It fluttered from my lips like prayer, and found him somewhere between this world and the next. His eyes opened, silver fading to gray, confusion softening into wonder. The curse's glow dimmed around him, leaving behind the fragile, human warmth of skin and heartbeat. I pressed my palm to his chest. "You came back," he smiled. "Weak, beautiful. You called me." And outside, the city exhaled with us. The first sound was his heartbeat, steady, defiant. Then the light around his chest began to unravel. Each chain of silver cracked open like winter ice, releasing small bursts of warmth that drifted into the air as golden dust. He reached for me, our fingers tangling, our breaths colliding in quiet disbelief. Every heartbeat that once hurt now bloomed with gentleness. every scar on his soul loosened, exhaling centuries of grief. When the last thread vanished, the room felt larger, lighter, as if the curse had been the air itself, and now we were finally breathing real life. He lifted my hand to his lips and whispered, "So this is what feeling means." And I, through tears and laughter, said, "It always meant you." A shadow lingered at the doorway. Lucien. He looked smaller without the curse to hide behind. The arrogance had melted from his face, leaving only age and exhaustion. For the first time, he didn't speak in riddles or warnings. He simply watched, eyes glistening, the corners of his mouth trembling between sorrow and relief. "I thought love would destroy us," he said. "It did," Adrian answered softly, "but only the parts that weren't real." Lucien's gaze dropped to the floor, where the remnants of magic shimmered like spilled starlight. He bowed his head once, a gesture of surrender, maybe forgiveness, and turned away. As the door closed behind him, the air seemed lighter, as if even the walls had forgiven him. When we stepped onto the balcony, the city stretched below us like an ocean of glass. The storm had passed, leaving droplets clinging to the rail, catching the sunlight in tiny rainbows. Adrian leaned against the railing, barefoot, breathing deeply, as though tasting air for the first time. He turned to me with that new smile, gentle and uncertain, like a man relearning happiness. "I used to watch this city and feel nothing," he murmured. "Now every light looks alive." I slid my hand into his. "Maybe it always was. You just needed to see it through love." The wind rose, cool and clean, carrying the scent of rain and coffee and beginnings. We stood there, while the sun climbed higher, painting the world gold. For once, there was nothing to fight, only to feel. Nights are quiet now, but it's a living quiet, full of warmth instead of absence. He sleeps easily, the lines of pain erased from his face. Sometimes he murmurs in his dreams, and I hear my name, soft and unbroken. I write while he sleeps, ink bleeding across old pages, trying to capture the sound of what we became. The world outside keeps moving. Rain on rooftops, traffic far below. But inside this room, time hums different. He taught me that love isn't about saving someone from darkness. It's about sitting beside them until they remember the light. I close my notebook, watch him stir, and whisper into the dawn. "You once said you couldn't love anyone." Then you heard me cry in my sleep. His arm finds me without waking, and I realize that was the moment the curse began to end.